Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's Mandy. So back to Carpe Vanguard deck profile. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't subscribe and let's go start with it. This time we are covering Brandt B heroes all around. It's interesting. It's the deck has come so far from being just a Vanguard that had nothing to do with like its support outside of the fact of their name to we now have just focus on multi-attack in some way, shape, or form to now focus on multi-attack and defensive power consistently. Like that, honestly, at this point, what heroes are. They are focused on multi-attack, rear guards, and defense abilities consistently without like any fluctuations in between that. And as annoying it is to look at all their differing skills, it does actually make sense and comes together as a cohesive unit. So let's go into the starter, shall we, and see what we got. So first today we have our starter, or not our starter, sorry, I'm out of it. I've already recorded like 4 deck profiles today. I'm just not in the mood. Anyways, we have our energy generator. It's a ride deck crest, the new card every deck is getting. You may only have one ride deck crest in your ride deck. Auto ride deck, when you ride, put this card into your crest zone. If you win second, energy charge 3, continues to be up to 10 energies, and then auto at the beginning of your ride phase, energy charge 3, and then act once per turn by energy blasting 7. You draw a card, all around pretty solid, because this deck does use a lot of energy, so you will not be able to use that energy blast 7 to draw a card unless like you hard bricked the entire game and saw none of your energy users. But on the bright side is energy charge 3 auto makes one of them free each turn because both of the energy users in this deck, which are very important key cards in it, both use 3 energy. So all around, very solid card to have. It's nice to use, and that's why we run in our ride deck. Then we have our starter, Galactic B Hero, Pearly Agno. So grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base. Such a cute little baby who does not fit with the ride line theme at all outside of the name. Anyways, auto road upon if you're running second, draw a card, standard starter, nothing too special about it, just a free draw if you go second. He's so cute. None of the ride line really requires him, but if you soul blast him out, there are ways to get cards in drop zone into your base. And I'm going to say this right now. Every card counts. I learned this way early on in DZ, or not even DZ. It was D, set 1. Specifically Nirvana versus Prison. By the way, I won that match, Nirvana versus Prison, for the record. So remember, set 1, Nirvana versus Prison. I won that because I literally used my opponent's Prison to their advantage. If you want a whole video on this, go ahead and I'll like make an entire story time of bullshit moments that I shouldn't have won, but I did via divine intervention of fate. But yeah, so what I've learned from that, every card counts. Agno's going to be in this deck one way or another just in case, because worst case scenario, if you need a free hero from base, you call Agno if no one else works for whatever reason that is. One of Agno in the ride deck. Then we have our trigger, Sorcerer Ruiner, Over Trigger, and Star Dragon, Deity of Infinitude, Eldo Breath, Grade 0 boost, 50 shield, 5k power, Over Trigger, in your deck. When revealed as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one of your units, it gets plus 1 over the turn, and if revealed during a jet check, activate its additional effect, which you get to double the power and critical of all your farmer units until end of turn, increase to double power critical when activated. So at the very least, whoever's not getting the million will at least be at 30 because the Vanguard, it's a Dianos, gives plus 5k to your front row. So all around pretty good. I'm gonna say this right now, if you pull Elbow Breath during your drive check, if at any point while you're a grade 3, you're probably winning unless your opponent has extra PGs to spare, because this deck can go aggro really easily, and the fact is you would have, 4 rear guards attacking a turn, and granted, only 3 of them are actually gonna have double criticals since your ability to swap your rear guards happens at the end of the battle, aka post drive check, so the one that you're moving from back row to front row won't get the buff unless you give it the million. But on the bright side, Elbow Breath does have that nice pressure to him and just basically makes it so if your opponent's at 4 damage or even not 4 damage, your opponent is probably going at a big deficit this turn in terms of guarding power, if not just losing the game outright. So one of Elder Breath, we definitely don't need Vulnerable for the restand. We already have that in the form of this deck's multi-attack spam. Then we have 3 copies of Amalete Connector, grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base, draw triggers, guard, so plus Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, gets 5k shield, 10k shield, which is nice to have. It's a draw trigger, so helps increase the hand as well. And considering the fact that the base is the second hand, you really only need cards that set up the base. Once you get, I want to say like 3 heroes. Like, granted, depending on what those heroes are, it'll be a lot better of a situation, but like once you get 3 to 4 heroes out of your deck, regardless of their different names or not, you're probably winning the game because a good chunk of those are probably going into base. So yeah, 3 of them like to connector, nice card, helps us get heroes into hand, and acts as a 10k shield when we need it to because the deck already has enough guarding power consistently as is. And move on to our other triggers. We're on a total of 8 crit, 4 copies of Star Aggression Dragon, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. This can really be any credit to run Star Aggression because I think he's cool. Then we have 4 copies of Patrol Robo Decker Cop. You can't run a hero deck without a cop in it. So grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard, and then about to boost it, put it to soul. Choose over units, it gets 2k for the turn. If you are hard soul blasting the entire game and by some unfortunate miracle of God, you do not see Espada, this will be your saving grace. I will tell you this right now, that happened to me once, and the one, like one of the early times I used all the critical trigger skill that summons up to soul was the one time I used that skill and it saved my ass. So yeah, Decker Cop, even though you will almost never use him in those one-up situations, it's useful. So we run 8 crit for pressure. And we run 4 heals and Alterate, Spear, Dragon, Great Zero Boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Standard heal, nothing too special about it. It's just a free heal and it's a 15k shield. If you want to run the counter heals, go ahead, but I much rather have a consistent 15k shield over fluctuating 10 to 25, but take that as you will. Then we move on to our normal units. First, of course, we run our 4 PGs and Planet Wall Dragon, grade 1 boost, 0 souls, K base, continuous sentinel. Map to only 4 sentinels in deck, and I'll put on guard circle. Choose one of your units, it cannot be hit in the battle. And every hand has 2 or more cards in it. Choose a card from your hand, discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it. Basically, that means if this and only one other card is in your hand when you place it on guard circle, you don't have to discard one. Great, because I mean you can be as aggressive as you want in the early game. Your early game starts the second you can attack, so yeah, by all means rush the hell out of your opponent, because even if your opponent kills your rear guards, unless they bind them, you can just place them from drop zone back into your base and then call them right back out. So be as aggressive as you want, and then when your opponent counterattacks you, throw down this PG if your base is enough to stop them, and then you don't have to discard anything if you have 1 or less hand cards. So all around very solid PG. You can run Planet Wall, you can run, I think it's called Violate. I always get the dark states and the Brandt Gate PG's confused, but I believe the Dark State one is called Rescue Hate Dragon, and I don't remember what the first one is called, but I remember it starts with an R. But either way, Planet Wall Dragon or Violate Dragon or the new PG works. They all have the same skill, but for Planet Wall, because it came out close to the time of Dianos release, so 4 of. Then we move on to our actual grade 1s, and pretty much the rest of the deck is going to be B heroes from here, except for the base, and that is Galactic B Hero Sender Ferris. So my favorite of the new cards, because as we all know, and I just did the Velino deck before this, and as I said there, I play a lot more aggressively than I play defensively. So out of the 2 new cards, this is the one I use more often, because the other one's a little bit more defensive. So Sender Ferris is a grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, continues rear guard during your turn, or not during just your turn, during both players' turns. If your order zone has 2 or more bases in it, this unit will get +5 power. The grade 1 auto gets you 1, and this deck has multiple ways of searching your deck and or drop zone for the other, but you will most likely have 2 available at all times, so being able to get the second one is not that hard. So free 13k after grade 3. And then act rear guard once per turn if you have a Vanguard B hero in its card name, regardless if it's a grade 2 or not. So that's the important part. Energy Blast 3 and rest base in your order zone, and this is the card where most of my energy goes to. Choose one of your scouted cards with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard, call it to rear guard circle. So for those of you that don't know, the base gets top 7 search, adds a hero to hand, and then adds another 2 to base, which means the second you hit grade 2 and you set that, and your grade 2 who scouts a card from your hand into base, you can then play this, Energy Blast 3, rest that base, and call something. The reason why that's important is because the base itself can call from its own self, but you have to rest it and discard a card. So now you don't have to discard a card, which is all around pretty solid. Ferris is all around a very good grade 1. I love her a lot. She allows my rear guards to get out into the board more consistently without losing hand cards, and that was my one gripe with the base, which is why I rarely ever used its skill to actually call. So 4 of Sender Ferris, very good grade 1. I love her skill. Then we have 4 copies of Galactic B Hero Direct Foiler, the original card that I hated from Dianos just because it felt so arbitrary with Dianos. Anyways, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto back or rear guard center. At the end of your battle, your grade 3 Vanguard B Hero and his card name attack. Soul Blast 1 rest itself. Choose 2 of your rear guards the same column as each other and exchange their positions. So 2 things I just realized about this, or be more exact, 1 thing I just realized and 2 things to note about it. First up, it's one of the few Soul Blasters in this game, or not in the game, in the deck. So by all means, all your soul pretty much goes to this. But also, it just swaps your column, so it sadly doesn't miss out on Elder Breath. But again, the whole deck is meant to switch evenly between offense and defense, so being able to swap out your front or rear guards for small offense is nice. And the thing I realized about it is it specifies grade 3. Most of D cards, even though most of them don't get grade 4 variants, specify grade 3 or greater. Direct Foiler is the only one I've noticed so far that specifies it has to be a grade 3, which means that Dianos doesn't work in Premium, because unless that Premium, I mean, this one does say Hero, but they are errated to be Hero, so take that as you will. Direct Foiler is a good grade 1 because she does swap rear guards very easily, but if you're trying to build a premium hero deck, just remember, unless your stuff has hero in the card, I mean, you can run it in DP, but you can't run it in Novas and you can't run it in Link Joker, but take that as you will. 4 of Direct Foiler. And move on to our last grade 1, one of them in the red deck, none in the main deck, because most of our stuff comes from grade 2, which I'm now just realizing that B Heroes is essentially grade 2 spam. So it's basically alt mile, except none of them have boost for some reason, I guess because Foiler exists. But that's the next support card. I'm willing to bet that they're going to get a grade 2 with boost. Anyways, Architect Passel, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto, when placed on Vanguard Circle, search your deck for 1 base card reveal, put it to hand, shuffle your deck. As every Brandt Gate grade 1 does, either when wrote upon or when placed, it auto searches for your main deck order. and then continues rear guard during battle. This unit boosted a B hero in his card name, gets plus 5,000 power, so 13k booster. You will never use this, but just like this grade 0, you run it because, well, also because it conserves the order, but you also run it because it has the name, and therefore, worst comes to worst, you can call Passel. One of in the ride deck, none in the main deck, because we have much better options for that, but he's an option if we need him. Then move on to our grade 2s. First up, let's talk about our most important card in the deck, because at this point I feel like I have to specify it. Hero Base Aegis at 4 copies. Grade 2, set orders play, put it to your order zone. Auto input into the order zone by any means. Doesn't matter if it's hard placed from hand. Like, for example, cards like Orphis that just say put it into the order zone would still proc this if Orphis could put this into the order zone, which it can't. But anyways, so the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 3 cards with B hero and their card names from among them, reveal them, put one of those into your hand, scout the other 2 into the base, and shuffle your deck. So all around, pretty solid. It can get you a free hand card, which is nice, and then it can, you know, put 2 cards into base, and then act order zone, rest this card and discard a card. Choose one of your scouted cards with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard, call it to rear guard circle, or just use Ferris so you don't lose a hand card unless you really need that EB for your defensive option. And then auto order zone, when your other unit is, when your unit is attacked, Soul Blast 1, so this is where the other Soul Blaster competes with Foiler, but this is why you are useful. Soul Blast 1, rest this card, choose one of your scouted cards and call it to guard circle. All around, pretty solid. Typically, thanks to the existence of Ferris now, you don't really use this effect unless like you don't have access to Ferris. So now you solely use it for guarding. However, Ferris still rests it regardless, which is why this card is very important, who I never use because I'm too focused on spamming Ferris 24/7, pretty much using all of my EB on her. But Age is all around very solid. It has defensive options. It allows you to get extra rear guards onto board, meaning the second that you hit grade 2, you can pretty much always have 4 to 5 rear guards, which means you pretty much have a full board the second you get the ability to attack if you went first. And not to mention the fact that past that point, you have a lot of defensive options. So if you're not playing against a nuke deck, you never have to worry about this, meaning you just get to spam this defensively 24/7, and you only have to worry about the soul, which Espada pretty much covers hands-on. So 4 of Aegis, it's searchable by a good chunk of the deck. There are cards that are not in this deck that can easily get more bases, either into hand or into order zone, and not to mention the fact to scout more cards in general, and it's just very easy to work with. So 4 of Aegis is pretty much the key card of this deck. Even just having one of them, which Percy gives you, automatically sets you up to have a decent game the entire time. 1 is fine, 2 is good, 3 you're probably winning. 4 of Aegis. Actually, 4 is probably winning, 3 is, it's a good chance you're winning. Moving on to grade 2s, we run 4 copies of Galactic B Hero Rampart Espada. Grade 2 is set 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when it's scouted, soul charge 1. It's a mandatory soul charge. Activates when it's put into the order zone as scouted, obviously. So, you know, free soul charge was great. The only downside is it can deck you out, which is why I originally hated Espada, because he would get me close to decking out every time I played this order. But on the bright side, this deck aggro's enough to where I don't really have to worry about decking out. And then it continues guard circle if your order zone has a base card in it and you have a Vanguard hero in his card name, it gets plus 10k shield. Okay, the important part to note is this: out of all the cards that are premium available, this is probably the best one, because this is a free 15k shield if you play any DP deck. Or, well, not any DP deck, because not all of them, specifically the Dimensional Robos, have hero in their card names, which I'm now understanding is probably why when they're bringing Dayusha back to D, that's probably why they don't have heroes in their card name, probably why specifically they picked Dayusha. But, anyways, you know, if you're playing something like Cosmic Heroes, look at that. It has hero in the card name, 15k shield. Either way, though, Esparta, very good. It's nice for defensive options, so it's a nice card to call from base, and it's obviously a nice card to scout too, because it pretty much makes the base itself free, and again, makes itself a 15k shield for possible guard power. All around, very solid grade 2. I like it a lot. 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of Galactic B Hero Bold Solace. So grade 2 and a set 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when it's discarded from your hand for the cost of the ability for your base in your order zone. Counterboss 1, call this card to rear guard circle, and then choose a card with B Hero and its card name from your drop zone and scout it in your base. All around, it is a very solid card because it's just a simple counterblast after ditching it for, you know, your base to maybe call Forest, for example, and then you call itself, and then you get another card scouted into your base, and then it contains rear guard during your turn. If you have 2 or more bases, it gets plus 10,000 power. All around very solid because it's a 20k beat stick, and it's just a good card. It gets you more base cards, it acts as discard fodder, and it's a 20k swing. What's not liked about it? Easy 4. The only downside is it takes into CB, which this deck doesn't really have a counter charger, but you know, we live with what we got. Then we have 4 copies of Galactic B Hero Amos Darnia, grade 2 and 5k shield, 10k base. All once you place on rear guard circle. If you have a Vanguard B Hero in his card name, and you have not placed a base into your order zone this turn. Soul Boss 1, ditch 1, search after 1 base, put it to your order zone, shuffle your deck. I want to be clear, this is available the second you get to grade 2. Which Passel also gives you one, because placing into order zone, or sorry, putting a card into order zone is different from placing it for the turn. That means you basically can set 2 bases on turn 2 if you have a Mass Darnia in hand. So automatically you can get 3, and the reason why I keep specifying 3 is because Dianos over here wants 3 for his full effect to go off. So cool, just by getting to grade 2, you can most likely get everything you need, and you could probably set up a Ferris while you're at it. And considering the fact that this works when it's put into Order Zone, that means you can proc off both of them, which means you get 2 top 7 searches, possibly 2 free hand cards to basically make her free and still plus off it, and still get a good chunk of cards into your base. All around pretty solid for that reason alone, and if they stop there, this card would still be really good. But her other effect, which makes her really fun for me to play at least, is auto rearguard. At the end of battle that she attacked into anything. If you have a Vanguard with B hero on this card name and your Order Zone has 3 more base in it, counterboss when to retire her, chooses one of your scouted cards called to rearguard. So it does eat into the CB, which the deck does kind of have a problem with. But on the bright side, she ends up calling herself, because she can. She doesn't name restrict, and she can attack anything. Some of the downsides to a lot of multi-attackers in D is that they have to attack the Vanguard. For Darnia, and a handful of others, she doesn't. Meaning she can go swing at the rear guard because, say, for example, the opponent either pulled a trigger, or maybe you have a better rear guard you want to swing with and you don't want to give your opponent the chance to pull a trigger. So instead, you swing with Darnia into like an interceptor. If they choose to guard her, that's on them. And then you CB, you retire her. Maybe you call another Darnia to do the same thing to the other interceptor just to get more multi-attack. Or you call something like Bull Solace, who now has more numbers. And the main difference of the situation is they have 5k less guarding power because you killed an interceptor. All around, Darnia is a very good grade 2. She gets you more order options just by not playing an order yet, and then you can play the one you get in hand from Passel. Then she can multi-attack more consistently. The only downside is she eats into the CB, but I will tell you this. Even though this deck, in my opinion, feels a little bit as complicated as Solarian, and as we've been over with Solarian in the deck profile, it's not really complicated. It's just me having shit timing and me forgetting a very specific card and how to use it. This deck does not feel that way. It has a lot more CBers and a lot less counterchargers than Solarian does, and yet I personally feel like this deck does not have a CB problem. Though, to be fair, I never said Solarian has a CB problem either, I just said I couldn't use it properly. But this deck feels like I can use it properly. So, all around, 4 of Darnia is very solid. She gets to add cards to Order Zone, she gets you multi-attack. What's not to love about her? Easy 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of her last grade 2 that isn't in the ride deck, and that is Galactic B hero Abel Motz. So grade 2 is a 5k shield 10k base. He's a good grade 2, do not get me wrong, but I don't use him often on the simple grounds of all of my EB literally goes to Ferris. Like, I'm not kidding, all of it goes to Ferris. I have used him maybe once in my entire time of having him, which granted isn't a lot, but like my point still stands. And again, it's not because he's a bad card, I just focus way too much on the offense. Anyways, Abel is a grade 2 with a 5k shield 10k base, continues rear guard if your Order Zone has 2 or more base in it. He gets plus 5,000 power after both players' turns. So plus Dianos giving them 5k. He's a 20k base during your opponent's turn, and this is an 18k base during your opponent's turn. Pretty solid, just by having 2 orders. And well, you know, Darnia plus Passel gets you the exact 2 orders you need. But his other skill is auto rear guard. When he attacks into a Vanguard, Energy Blast 3, choose any number base from your Order Zone, stand them, and soul charge 1 for each card stand. So if you have free 3 EB standing around, because maybe you didn't send all of them onto Ferris, you can then stand all of your orders, and then for each one you stood, you get to soul charge, meaning you pretty much get to use them for free again. All around, Abel is very good because he enables you, get the joke, okay, I'll go jump off cliff now. Anyways, he enables you to get more guard power on your opponent's turn while still being able to aggro well on your turn, and he just works really well with the deck, and he's a 20k swing, which is all around pretty solid. So 4 of him, does a good grade 2. Again, I would use him more often if I wasn't so focused on trying to spam the board with Ferris and then completely combo it with a mass, but you know what, that's just how I play the deck. Be smart, use Abel at least once, and you'll probably be fine with defensive power 4 of. Then we have last grade 2 in the deck at least, one of in the ride deck, none in the main deck, and that is Galactic B hero Wired Colston. Grade 2 is a 5k shield, 10k base, act Vanguard once per turn, scout a B hero and his card name from your hand into your base to draw a card, and then scouted cards are put face up into your Order Zone, and then auto rearguard once per turn when this unit is moved to another rearguard circle during battle phase. It gets plus 5,000 power for that turn. Okay, out of all your ride line, again with like the rest of the ride line, it's not that great, but you do, like Passel, you run it for its skill, and then also, like the rest of the ride line, because it has B hero in his card name, you run it because if you soul blast it out, and then you bind or put it into the Order Zone, you can then call it out worst case scenario. So, you know, when you move it, it's at least going to get extra 5k, but you're going to use every one of these instead because this is bigger numbers, this is bigger numbers, this is the same, actually this is less numbers, but it gets you more attacks out of it if you have the free CB going for it. This is bigger numbers, and you need this in back row center. But, you know, Colston is an option if you need to swap rear guards, and, you know, basically being able to get free benefit and then draw a card is nice, especially because, like, say, for example, the cards you add off the base that you you set from either Amass Darnia or Passel is Espada, and then you just put 2 other cards, you could then use not Espada, you can then use Colston to put Espada into the order zone and then draw a card, and you get to soul charge 1 as well. All around, Colston is a very solid grade 2. I do like his skill. That's why he's a 1 of in the right deck, none in the main deck. And then finally, we have our grade 3s. We only have 1 grade 3 in this deck, 1 of in the right deck, 3 in the main deck of Galactic B Hero Unite Dianos. I'm now starting to understand why he's called Unite, because as I said at the start of this video, originally all the B Heroes felt like they were just a bunch of different skills and they didn't really have a win con, or at least when it compared to Dianos and obviously their main support card at the time, Falaro, when they were first released, it felt like there was no real synergy between them because the only synergy was front row gets +5. But now I'm starting to see it where their whole focus is just to have a bunch of different skills combined together to have a good balance of offense and defense, like how this obviously more defense while this is more offense, and it just makes a really consistent thing, which is why he's called Unite. Anyways, Unite Dianos, grade 3 to press 3rd decay base, continues Vanguard Circle during your turn, or not just during your turn, during both players' turns. All your front or rear guards with B Hero and their card names get plus 5,000 power. All around pretty solid because it gives more numbers to the front row, making it a little bit harder for them to hit it, but also making all of your cards at least 5 drops now for guarding, which is nice. And then auto Vanguard, once you attack into anything, Vanguard or rear guard, for whatever reason, attack into the rear guard when using the skill. If your order zone has a singular base card, Passel gives you this. There's no reason why you shouldn't use a skill if you can afford it. Counterblast 1 until end of that battle. This unit gets plus 15,000 power, and if your order zone has 3 or more base cards in it, this is why Amass Darnia is so good. And the other grade 2 that can get free orders is so good. This unit gets a crit. I think the reason why I don't run that card is because it was a promo. I think it was that one that was a promo. I don't remember. It's a grade 2 Mondo, whatever his name is, the guy that uses the deck in the anime. I think he used it. I just don't remember if it's a promo or not. I know that's why I don't run most cards if they're promos. But either way, this deck doesn't need it. I'm just saying. But either way, though, very good card, free 15k if you can pay the CB, and automatic effect can possibly be a crit as well, which adds for a lot more pressure in a deck that has at least 4 attacks just by the existence of Foiler alone. And not to mention the fact if you have, for example, Amass Darnia, you're probably getting more attacks as well. And even then, the deck still feels like, and if you spam out Amass Darnia 24/7, because I did that once, I think it was on camera too, where I used 3 Amass Darnias in a turn, and granted it threw on my CB, and I think my opponent lived that, and I still had a good chunk of base cards left, and the bases were still standing, and this was pre DZ, which means I didn't even have Able yet. So like the point stands that the deck can be as aggressive as it needs to, and it will still have defensive options. So it's pretty easy to get stuff into base. It's an easy 28k and plus a crit to an AV Persona row. That's a 38k, which is all around immediately pretty solid. When he first came out, that skill was not very good, but now that we've had a lot of support cards that put more stuff to base and make the base a lot more consistent, yeah, that skill's actually pretty solid. They cooked with this one. 3 in the main deck, 1 in the right deck. And without further ado, I'm going to end this one here. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, this deck is actually very fun to play, and that is saying something, because if you all were paying attention, if you've been here since set 6, you know I actively hated how they handled B Heroes, especially because I would always rant about how B Heroes got like random sets of support. Like B Heroes were released in set 6, they did not get a single card until set 9 because that single card was so lost, and then they got things I think in set 12, and then I don't think they got a single card in set 13 unless Darnia was a thing in set 13, and that, okay, yeah, no, never mind, they got a card in set 13, but they didn't get a card in set 12, and I think they got a promo somewhere in between that, but yeah, pretty much like they rarely got cards, and then now we're getting stuff in DZ set 2, and they actually feel consistent. So all around, they did a good job with them. I just didn't like how they handled it at the beginning, but now they're getting consistent support. It feels pretty good. So without further ado, I'm going to end this one here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, join the Twitch, and I'll see you all next one. Don't forget to set up your Vanguards.